Hello, my name is Kelly, and welcome to my channel, Kelly Connections. I am here because I wanted to do something a little bit different today. I actually have been blessed with an amazing man that is my father. And what I find is I tell a lot of stories and life lessons that he's taught me and things I've learned from him. And a lot of people, women and men, they both express to me, they're like, "Man, your dad sounds awesome. I wish I had a dad like yours." And I just felt like I wanted to do something a little bit different today. I kind of wanted to share my father with you. So I just wanted to give a few stories and a few lessons that I've learned from him. And I will start that out in story form. Okay, so I have so many memories of my father, but the most important one that I feel like he taught my sisters and I, because I am one of 5 children and I'm one of 4 sisters. So he had 4 girls. There was constantly people always trying to come knock on our door and talk to one of us. And an important lesson he taught us when we were young is the importance and purpose of sex. And for the respect of other parents and how they want to deliver this information to their children. I won't go into detail on what sex is, but more so the purpose of it. So I'll tell you that story from him. So my sisters and I, we're stair steps. It's like one, two, three. We were born back to back. And I think we were like maybe 5, 6, 7, or 6, 7, and 8. We were like really close. And it was after church one day, and he brought us all to like the living room and he had us sit down and he asked us if we knew what sex was. And we chuckled at first. We thought it was a joke. You're like, "What, Dad?" And he said, "No, I want to know. Do you know what sex is?" And we all like had our thoughts about what we thought it was, but we were kind of sheltered growing up, so we thought, one of us were like, "Oh, it's when you kiss and you kiss a lot and that's sex." But obviously, no. Most of you know what it is. Most people don't know the purpose of it. So I remember we all gave our thoughts about what we thought sex was, and he kind of chuckled and he was like, "Well, have a seat because I want to sit down and I want to tell you, ladies, what sex is and what is the purpose of it and when to do it." And I know a lot of people have their different thoughts and ideas about when the right time is to have sex, but he was a pastor, so he had a lot of biblical principles and he taught from a Christian perspective. So, again, after church, we're sitting down and we've all given our thoughts about what we thought sex was. And then he sits down and he actually tells us, he said, "Sex is when a man and a woman do this." And most of you know what that is. And we were all like shocked, like, "What? That's what it is? We would have never known." And I don't know how most parents share or have the sex talks or the birds and the bees talk with their kids, but this is how he did it. So he had my mom, and they were both sitting there, and they were like a unified front. They came and they sat together with us, and he told us what it was, and we were like, "Oh, okay." And so, we're like, "Okay, that's interesting." And he said that the purpose of sex is for a husband and a wife, a man and a woman. And he said that you're supposed to do it within the confines of marriage. So you're supposed to wait and save yourself for marriage. And he's telling us this. And I remember when he was having this conversation, he didn't give us any other options. I know a lot of parents be like, "Don't have sex, but here's some condoms just in case." He never did that. He was like, "This is when you're supposed to have sex. You're not supposed to have sex before marriage. You're supposed to wait and you're supposed to remain a virgin until you meet your husband. Wait until marriage." And the purpose of waiting until marriage is that sex is a covenant. And I remember him explaining this to us, and I didn't quite know what all the terminology meant at the time. I know now, but he was talking to us about the female hymen, and that's the blood that's shed when you have sex for the first time, when you lose your virginity. And he told us that there is no medical reason for the hymen, but there's a spiritual reason for it. And the reason for the hymen is because when you make a covenant, there has to be a shedding of blood. So back in the Old Testament, when you made a covenant with someone, there usually was a sacrifice of an animal or something like that. So with a woman, when you make a lifelong covenant with your husband, there is the shedding of blood. So you really are only supposed to be having sex with your husband. Men are only supposed to have sex with their wives, and wives are only supposed to have sex with their husbands. Um, this has been tainted and distorted, and there's so many different variations of what people think is right and wrong and okay now, but this is what we were taught. That being said, it's the purpose of a covenant. A husband and wife come together, they get married, and then they consummate their marriage with sex. And I remember he explained it to us, and I never thought sex was weird or disgusting or something dirty. I always thought it was a beautiful thing because he told us that sex was created by God. God created sex for a husband and wife to enjoy and also to produce children. So I remember thinking, wow, sex is a beautiful thing. He said, it feels good. It's something that you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be pleased with your spouse. And obviously when we got older, we had further talks about it. But this is what he told us when we were young. He said, but that is supposed to be within marriage. And I just know that a lot of times now people don't realize that every time they have sex, every time you give away your body to someone, you're creating what was meant to be a covenant between two people. And that's why a lot of people will never forget their first, because they've created a covenant with this person and they don't even know it. So there's a lot of men that go out and they have sex with different women. My father used to call them covenant stealers because you're making covenants with all these young women and taking that beauty, that joy away from it that they're supposed to experience with only their husband. And a lot of young girls don't know this. A lot of men don't know this. So in turn, they're giving away their virtue, and the one beautiful thing you're supposed to present to your husband as a gift, you just give it away to the first guy that says a couple nice things to you. And I remember he told us he also told us that a lot of men are going to come up to you and they're going to talk to you and they're going to say things. They're going to say you're beautiful, they're going to say they love you, they're going to say all these different things just to make sure that they can have sex with you. And I think I was 11 the first time a guy came up to me. He was maybe 15 or 16. I was 11. So it started young. And a guy came up to me and he was like, you know what? I think I might love you. And I don't know, do men tell their sons to say this? Go tell a girl you love her so you can have sex with her. But he's like, men are going to say this. And I remember when the guy told me he loved me, and I was like, you love me? I'm 11, right? I was like, you love me? You don't even know me. How can you love me? And I was like, oh, my father told me you would come. Like, this is exactly what I said. My father told me you would come. He told me you would say this. He told me you were going to tell me you love me because you want to have sex with me, right? I'm 11. I was like, you want to have sex with me, right? I was like, sorry, I can't have sex before marriage. So sorry. That was very matter of fact. And the guy was sitting there like he was like, you caught me. Like he didn't say it, but his face was like, oh, how did you know? I was like, yeah, I knew you were coming. Like my dad told me, he warned me about guys like you. So I do think there is a huge importance for having your father in your life. Number one, women don't know men like men know men. So I always think it's important to have your father in your life so he can um, get to know a gentleman for you and he can take a look. And I remember even as an adult, if I would meet a gentleman and he wanted to date me, um, I would show my father a picture even before I would go out with him. I would be like, Dad, look at this guy. I would show a picture on the phone, like, look at this guy. What do you think of him? And my dad would look at him and he'd be like, he seems like a nice guy. Or he seems controlling, or he would just like be able to like see in the picture, like I guess based off of his aura or everything he was presenting in that photo. He's like, I don't like his eyes. He seems like, and I'm like, okay, not gonna waste my time, and I would just not go out with him. But if my dad was like, he seems like, yeah, that's someone I would take the time to get to know, and immediately I would not date them. Maybe 2-3 days before I would introduce him to my father because I wanted to know. I didn't want to waste my time. Because as we know, like women, we don't have a lot of time. Um, so yeah, so that's just one of the lessons. So the purpose of sex, as far as I'm concerned, was for marriage, and it's a beautiful thing, and it's something you should do inside of marriage as much as you want and as often as you want, and enjoy it. And there's so many things that you prevent from having sex just with your spouse, like heartbreak. How how often would you be devastated from a breakup if you didn't give your body away? That's one. Number two, there's so many diseases out there. It's just like it's gross. Like who wants to deal with any type of community anything? That's just nasty. So saving yourself can just prevent a lot of and I know a lot of people are not going to like what I have to say, and that's okay. You can pass it along to someone who would value this information, or even give it to your daughters if you don't know how to have that sex talk with them. But yeah, I appreciate you joining in for my memories from dad. And oh, just so everyone knows, it's very close to my heart because all I have now is memories since we just recently lost our father about a year and a half ago. So I do want to share everything that he poured into us. I say us as in my siblings, because he did dedicate. He was an excellent father, an excellent husband, and he stayed married to my mother until the day that he died. They were married for 38 years before he passed away. So I did want to be able to share and give some of my experiences and gems that he passed to me. I wanted to help give it to others, and hopefully they can use it. If not, share it with someone else. Thank you. And be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and more to come.